They told stories about humanity, whispers in council chambers, warnings etched into star maps. 50 years of silence. No trade, no contact, no war. Just one unspoken rule. Never cross into human space. But now someone did, and what they found wasn't a warning. It was a wall. A living, breathing force built to face what no one else dared imagine. Because humanity didn't disappear. They evolved, and the galaxy is about to find out why. Before we dive into this mind-bending tale of humanity's transformation and the galaxy's greatest threat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories that challenge what you think is possible. Ready to find out why no one dares cross into human space? Let's begin. The Celestial Council Chamber hung in a tense silence, the kind that seems to press against your chest. Then, from the center dais, a figure stepped into the light. Commander Virex, scales like emerald glass, caught the radiance spilling from the crystal latticework of the high dome above. He had survived 3 galactic conflicts, witnessed empires bloom and burn across 12 star systems. But today, the veteran warrior looked shaken. "There's movement," Virex said, his voice gravelly, weighted with unease. Human movement. That word, human, sent a current through the crowd like static. A low murmur spread to the assembled delegates. 47 species, some ancient, others newly spacefaring. Even after half a century of uneasy quiet, the name still stirred an instinctual discomfort, a primal tension none could fully suppress. Floating at the far end of the chamber in a gentle swirl of violet light was Ellerin Voth, a scion of the Equine Order. Her translucent form shimmered with pulsing light, emotional resonance. Concern radiated from her in soft pulses. "What kind of movement?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. Admiral Thorvax clicked his chinless mandibles, a sound like bones cracking underwater. The veteran commander of the Zenthri border fleet had memorized the scars of the frontier. He knew where danger liked to hide. Commander Virex raised his arm, summoning a holographic projection. It unfurled with metallic hum. A galactic map flared into view, most of it bathed in calming blue, the recognized regions of the Concord Dominion. But one vast sector, near the outer spiral, pulsed in blood-red light. "The Ember Verge," he said grimly. 3 solar rotations ago, we picked up abnormal power surges here, on the fringe of human-controlled space. The chamber shifted from murmurs to a rising clamor. Even races who hadn't agreed on planetary trade routes suddenly aligned in raw fear. The Serpenoids coiled in agitation. The Zithri blinked rapidly, wings twitching. The light forms of Ellerin's kin flickered with unsteady brilliance. "Silence!" called the council speaker, High Arbitral Sovereign, his silver fur glinting as he raised his staff. "Let's hear from the expert. Scholar Voth, you've been studying their broadcasts, their culture. What do you see?" She drifted closer, touching the hologram. Her fingers sparked as the map zoomed in on the verge, revealing a chaos of unfamiliar readings. Her voice carried across the room like a song woven from wind and sorrow. "I've observed them for 2 decades, their media, their science, even their fiction. What I've uncovered," she paused, the shimmer of her form dimming, "should alarm us all." She flicked her wrist, revealing patterns in the hologram. Massive energy arcs, temporal anomalies, frequency clusters that defied known physics. They still call themselves human, but they are no longer what first left Terra centuries ago. They've transformed, not through diplomacy, not through alliance, through isolation. Admiral Thorvax leaned forward, antennae alert. "How? What changed?" "For 50 years, they've closed themselves off," Voth replied. "No embassies, no markets, no art shared. And yet, their technology has leapt forward at a velocity we can't chart. They speak of reshaping stars and bending light as casually as we discuss crop yields." She rewound the hologram, overlaying chronotronic data. But it's not just their machines evolving. Their minds, their civilization, is mutating into something new, something that doesn't think in terms we understand. And in the heart of the red zone, something pulsed, slow, vast, alive. I've seen their simulation drills, intercepted their medical logs, even decrypted neurodevelopment reports, Ellerin Voss said, her voice barely a whisper. What they now classify as an average human would have been considered their apex combatant just 5 decades ago. Gasps rippled through the chamber. That defies reason, declared High Arbitral Sovereign, ears twitching. Biological evolution takes millennia. Natural evolution, yes, Ellerin replied, her glow tightening into a halo. But these beings, they've abandoned nature's pace. To them, limits are suggestions, nothing more. A stunned silence blanketed the room. Everyone present had heard the tales. The origin myth of humanity's entrance into the galactic stage. 2 centuries prior, they'd emerged from a backwater world in clunky vessels, brandishing crude kinetic weapons. But they hadn't come to parley or plead. They fought. Everyone. Not out of conquest. Not out of cruelty. Simply because they didn't yet understand how to yield. Every loss became a lesson. Every victory, a blueprint for the next. They weren't conquerors. They were students of war, and the galaxy had been their classroom. We offered them a seat in the Concord, murmured Elder Tsari the Felnari clade, his 3 eyes dim with memory. But they declined, said they needed solitude to evolve on their own terms. That was half a century ago, Admiral Thorvac said, clicking his legs impatiently. And now, Virex adjusted projection once more. This time, a timeline emerged, decades of data unfurling like a ribbon of light. For the first 20 cycles, he explained, they followed expected trends, planetary expansion, orbital transport, moderate cultural growth. The projection shifted. A ripple moved through the chart like a tectonic shiver. But around year 30, the pattern shifted. Every colony, every industrial sector began aligning, not randomly, strategically, as though every citizen shared a singular objective. A chorus of voices surged. What objective? We don't know, Virex confessed. But the energy flares we caught 3 days ago, whatever they're powering, it's immense. Large enough to illuminate an entire stellar array. Ellerin's glow dimmed further as she floated higher, her form now casting shadows. There's another detail from their cultural archives. She gestured, and scenes from human fiction shimmered in midair. Beasts with horns, creatures from depths, titans of chaos. In their stories, they tell of monsters, but not as villains. Not really. These beings are different. Feared, yes, but never beyond redemption. Humans either try to save them or stop them only when there's no other way. What's your point? Asked the speaker, brow furrowing. I think they now see themselves as the monsters, and they're deciding what to do about that. A chill passed over the room. Admiral Thorvax rose, his spindly frame casting jagged shadows across the dais. Then we need eyes on them. I offer the shadow wing. We'll observe from orbit, silent, invisible. Get intel. Return safely. Instantly, a dozen voices objected. You'd violate the Treaty of Celestial Accord. The Ember Verge is sovereign territory. High Arbitral Sovereign raised his staff. The treaty is clear. No incursion. No provocation. And yet that same treaty obliges us to safeguard Concord species from existential threats. Thorvac shot back. If the humans have become one, we must understand them. Ellerin drifted between them like a living ghost, her tone measured but heavy with foreboding. I support the Admiral's motion, but we must tread lightly. There's an old human idiom, curiosity killed the cat. She paused, eyes flickering. I fear we may be the cat. The debate raged on, spilling into the night cycle. Some factions demanded direct contact. Others pushed for border reinforcement. A bold few whispered of open conflict. But no one could deny it anymore. The humans were no longer dormant. They were becoming something. And no one knew what. There was still a sliver of hope. Some believed diplomacy might yet prevail. The council voted. It was close, uncomfortably close. But in the end, Admiral Thorvax was granted his mission. Take only your most trusted ships, the speaker ordered, his voice stern. Keep to the shadows beyond their sensors. No signals, no probes, no engagement. If you detect any indication of imminent danger, you fall back. Immediately, Thorvax bowed his head. Understood. We depart with the next cycle's rise. As the council began to disperse, Ellerin Voth drifted toward him, her light dim with unease. Tread carefully, old friend, she said, her tone hushed. I've studied their patterns, their dreams, their nightmares. The deeper I go, the more I realize we never truly grasped what they were becoming. Thorvax glanced at her. What do you think we'll find out there? Ellerin hesitated. Her glow flickered, unstable, as if her thoughts were too dangerous to express fully. I think we'll learn why no one crosses the Ember Verge. And perhaps we'll understand that the barrier wasn't keep us out. She leaned closer. It might have been protecting us from what lies within. That night, as Thorvax stood aboard his command ship preparing his fleet, her words replayed in his mind like a chorus he couldn't silence. 50 years ago, humanity had been the outlier, the backward, isolated race that others pitted, mocked, or ignored. Now, they were the uncharted threat keeping the galaxy's oldest powers staring at the stars in dread. Tomorrow, Thorvax would discover why. Before dawn, 12 Shadow-class vessels detached silently from orbit. Their matte black hulls vanished into the void, optimized for stealth and passive surveillance. Engines barely hummed as they slipped beyond Confederation space, toward the burning edge of every star map. As the last beacon of Dominion territory faded behind them, Thorvax looked ahead, into the unknown, into the dark, and somewhere out there, something was awakening. Meanwhile, on Outpost Halcyon, deep within the Ember Verge, Captain Joran Kale sipped bitter scent coffee, blinking the sleep from his eyes. Then came the alarm. The mug slipped from his fingers, shattering across the steel floor, its contents forgotten as the captain bolted for the command deck. "Report," he barked, the word echoing across the sterile walls. Lieutenant Sarah Nix spun from the comms console, face pale beneath her visor. Multiple pings on long-range grid, approaching from Concord space. Signature suggests Zenthree's stealth pattern. Kale's got twisted. The Zenthree were the best infiltrators in the known galaxy. If they were coming, it started, he muttered. He'd hoped it never would. How many? He asked tightly. 12 ships, sir. They're masking well, but they tripped our advanced Net 2 parsecs out. Kale's jaw clenched. The new detection grid, rolled out only in the past decade, had been developed in total secrecy. The rest of the galaxy had no idea what humanity could now see or do. Estimate time to intercept? At current speed, they'll breach the outer perimeter in... She didn't finish. Kale already knew. This was no longer about waiting. It was about deciding who would blink first. Outer field breach in 6 hours. Captain Joran Kale stood at the heart of the command ring. Around him, his crew watched in disciplined silence, calm, alert, and already braced for what was coming. These weren't ordinary officers. Each member stationed aboard Halcyon had been handpicked, not just for skill, but for resolve. Every one of them had been trained for this moment. Kale gave the order with chilling calm. Activate Protocol Omega. No one moved at first. Protocol Omega was the last line. The trigger they hoped would gather dust in the archives of contingency. And now it was live. Dr. Elias Wren, seated at the Neural Analytics Station, looked up slowly. Sir, are we certain? Once Omega's engaged, there's no undoing it. Kale didn't hesitate. The decision wasn't ours to make, document. It was made 5 decades ago. We're just the ones turning the key. Lieutenant Sarah Nix's fingers blurred across her hollow console. Omega Protocol engaged, Captain. All outer installations reporting synchronization. The lattice is activating. A cold weight settled in Kale's chest, familiar, unwelcome. For 3 years, he had carried the burden of guarding humanity's most dangerous secret. Today, for the first time, part of it would step into the light. "Nix," he said, "open a comm channel. Use Concord encryption. Channel is live." Kale inhaled deeply, then spoke with deliberate clarity. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Joran Kale, the Terran Defense Fleet. You're entering sovereign space under protected status. Reverse course immediately." A reply came seconds later, a blend of insectoid chittering and sharp tone modulation. "This is Admiral Varnax of the Concord Reconnaissance Wing. We are on a peaceful fact-finding mission. Our intention is observation only." Kale almost laughed. They thought they were being subtle. They didn't know Terran intelligence had long since penetrated Concord networks. Kale already knew about the vote, about Voth's warnings, about the debates behind closed star chambers. "Admiral Varnax," Kale replied coolly, "your presence is unauthorized. I'm giving you a final warning. Withdraw or suffer the consequences." From across the bridge, Chief Systems Operator Kira Dane approached. She had once served in a classified arm of Terran intelligence, one that had no name and no records. "Sir," she said quietly, "shall I initiate the sequence?" Kale nodded once. "Do it." Dane returned to her terminal. A silent storm of code flowed across the displays. One by one, holograms lit up around the command ring, revealing a web of Terran strongholds, patrol fleets, planetary defense grids, and deep-orbit sentry platforms. The Concord's reconnaissance fleet was about to really see, what lay beneath the silence of human territory. Aboard the Zenthri command vessel, Admiral Varnax stared at the expanding flood of energy readings. When the humans triggered something labeled Protocol Omega, their entire sector had begun to ignite. Power surges radiating from systems thought to be dormant. "Science Chief," Varnax called, his voice clipped. "What am I looking at?" The response came with a tremble of dread. "Admiral, we're detecting energy levels that surpass even the theoretical limits of planetary fusion arrays. These aren't shields. They're not point defenses." The officer looked up slowly. "These are engines." "They're something else entirely," whispered the science officer. "Are they weapons?" Admiral Varnax asked, his mandibles tightening. I can't say for sure, sir. The energy architecture doesn't match any known configuration. It's like they built something that breaks the rules." Aboard the Halcyon, Dr. Elias Wren worked silently, his console flickering with alien cognitive data streams. His role wasn't warfare, it was insight, understanding how each species processed fear, responded to uncertainty, and made high-stakes decisions. "Captain," he called across the deck. "Based on Zenthri neurobehavior, they're likely disoriented. Their cloaking systems are failing, and they're encountering energy fields outside any recognized schema. Their instinct will be to observe, not engage. At least not yet." Kale gave a curt nod. "How long do we have?" "The Zenthri are methodical. They'll want confirmation before they escalate. I'd estimate 1 hour, maybe less." Lieutenant Nix's voice cut in. "Sir, we're intercepting outbound data pulses from their flagship, encrypted signals heading toward Concord Core." Kale didn't flinch. "Let them go. In fact, amplify the signal. Boost the clarity." His crew blinked in confusion, but followed orders. If the intruders wanted to show their leaders what they were seeing, perfect. That was the point. On the Zenthri command ship, Admiral Varnax's unease deepened. His science officer returned, antennae twitching. "Admiral, we confirmed something else." "What now?" "These aren't isolated defense grids. They're synchronized. Every human stronghold, beacon, and orbital station is responding as one. When one activates, they all do." Varnax's core chilled. "You're saying their infrastructure is linked?" "I'm saying, Admiral, that Terran territory isn't just fortified. It's fused. Every element tied together. every system part of a unified whole. This was no primitive outpost cluster. This was something else entirely. And suddenly his sleek, state-of-the-art stealth cruiser felt like a fragile antique. Then the bridge filled with the unmistakable resonance of a transmission. The voice of Captain Joran Kale rang through the command deck, calm, cold, final. Admiral Varnax, you now have 5 minutes to begin your withdrawal. After that, your presence will be considered a hostile incursion. Varnax opened his mouth to respond, but his science officer waved him down. Wait, sir. There's more. What is it? I'm tracking massive power surges across all Terran systems. The scale is incomprehensible. How incomprehensible? Varnax asked, though he already feared the answer. If the metrics are right, Captain, they're drawing enough energy to distort space-time itself. It struck Varnax like a gravitational wave, crushing, inevitable. The Terrans weren't just securing their borders. They had turned their slice of the galaxy into something alive. Unprecedented, the science officer whispered, just as a final transmission from Captain Kale arrived, calm, ice-edged, resolute. Your time is up, Admiral. You wanted to witness what we've become? Congratulations. You're about to see it for yourself. Then total blackout. The Halcyon vanished from scanners. Every Terran energy signature blinked out, as if someone had flipped a master switch on the cosmos itself. Silence fell, but not the kind of silence that brings peace. This was a silence that precedes storms that rewrite maps. Then something shifted. The stars began to move, not like vessels, not like planets. They twisted, spiraled, shimmered in unnatural formations, warping and curling like paint spilled into water, disobeying every physical law Admiral Varnax had studied. At the heart of it all, Terran space ignited, radiating a light that shouldn't exist, a glow that seemed to ripple through dimensions. That's when the realization struck him. They weren't just looking at humans anymore. They were inside whatever the humans had constructed. And judging by the unprecedented readings now howling across his console, whatever was could bend reality itself. Then the final message came, not as a warning, but as a verdict. Kale's voice returned, calm and merciless. You wanted to know why no one crosses into Terran space, Admiral? Now you'll experience the answer, firsthand. A pause. Welcome to humanity's finest creation. We call it evolution. Varnax stared in mounting dread as the stars twisted once more, the cosmos deforming around his fleet like a net tightening. Light bent in impossible curves. Motion obeyed no vector. He grabbed the edge of the console. Status. What is happening? The response from his lead analyst was broken and panicked. Admiral, we're losing orientation. Our instruments can't parse any of it. It's like they've rewritten physics. Before Varnax could respond, a new voice entered the bridge, smooth, cold, terrifying in its certainty. Admiral Varnax, this is Colonel Ben Halen of the Soul Continuum Network. Do not panic. You are in no immediate danger. The voice echoed, but you are now within Terran-controlled space. Everything here functions by our design. Varnax found his voice at last. What have you done? This isn't real. This is impossible. Impossible is a word we retired 50 years ago, Colonel Halen replied without hesitation. You came to observe us. Now you're part of what you came to study. Welcome to the Darwin Protocol. Aboard the command vessel Vanguard, Colonel Ben Halen stood before an array of holoscreens displaying the alien fleet suspended in Terran territory, motionless, trapped, blinking in terror. Around him, his team operated with the serene intensity of a civilization reborn to design humanity version 2.0. Dr. Marin, he said to the lead architect seated at the central station. Status of our guests? She looked up, face glowing with quiet triumph. I've been waiting 3 decades to see this moment. They're fully enclosed within the construct field. Observers only. No interference. Halen nodded slowly. Good. Then it's time. He turned to the center console and spoke without hesitation. Initiate Phase 1. Across Terran space, the machinery of a re-engineered species came alive. Across Terran space, long dormant systems began to stir. But these weren't weapons, not in any way the Concord understood, nor were they shields, fleets, or traditional force fields. They were something deeper. They were tools, instruments capable of altering the fundamental structure of space itself. Reality, rewritten at will, confined within boundaries that humanity had engineered. Aboard the Zendari flagship, Admiral Varnax watched as unfamiliar vessels emerged from distortion, slipping into view one by one. But these weren't catalogued ships. They didn't resemble anything he'd seen before. Their forms morphed as they moved, reconfiguring on the fly, adjusting to unknown variables in real time. Admiral, called his comms officer, eyes wide, were receiving data streams from the Terran fleet. They're transmitting. What kind of data? Varnax asked warily. Everything, sir. Historical logs, technical schematics, philosophical texts. It's like they want us to understand. Against every instinct, Varnax authorized a transfer. As terabytes of encrypted material flowed into their systems, the picture became clearer and far more terrifying. Then a voice, calm and precise, came through their comms array. Dr. Marin's voice. Admiral Varnax, what you're witnessing is a culmination of 50 years of intentional, directed evolution. When we first encountered your civilization, we realized something crucial. Varnax leaned in, his breath caught in his throat. We weren't ready to join the wider galaxy. Why not? He asked, though a part of him already knew. Because we were still shackled by belief, by the illusion of limitation, Marin replied. Your civilizations, the entire Concord, reached a plateau. You found peace, yes, but peace through stagnation. Advancement ended where comfort began. Aboard the command vessel Vanguard, Commander Alex Ryder stepped forward beside Colonel Halen. Ryder piloted the most advanced starcraft humanity had ever produced. But more than that, he was proof of what humanity had become. His neural latency was lower than any natural brain. His perception could map real-time data faster than any AI. Yet within him still pulsed that old human core, curiosity, resilience, the need to grow. Show them the settlements, Ryder said quietly. Dr. Marin smiled. A new feed lit the alien screens. Images bloomed across the Concord Bridge. Sprawling Terran cities, unlike anything the galaxy had known. But these weren't static habitats. They lived, organic structures, grown not built, shifting their shape and function to match the needs of their citizens in real time. Homes that breathed, roads that restructured, communities that evolved with their inhabitants. This is impossible, Varnax whispered, eyes wide. You keep using that word. Came a gruff voice as a new figure appeared on the screen. General Ryan Strata, Supreme Commander of Terran Defense. And something more. Looking at him, Varnax felt something shift inside. This wasn't just a human. This was a being that had transcended constraint, yet somehow retained the essence of what made humanity dangerous in the first place. General Strata, Varnax managed, struggling to keep his composure. What do you want from us? Strata didn't blink. Nothing, he said, voice low, steady and final. We want nothing from you. Not your territory, not your minerals, not your governments. General Strata said, his voice unwavering. We don't want anything from you. Then why show us this? Varnax asked, still reeling. Why reveal your capabilities? Dr. Marin stepped forward, her expression serene, her tone precise. Because isolation only lasts when it's respected, she said. For 50 years, your Concord has speculated on our absence. You've spun myths, whispers of vanished colonies and secret tech. You feared what you didn't understand. She gestured to the hollow streams, still broadcasting the terrifying beauty of human advancement. Today the guessing ends. We didn't retreat out of malice or fear, she continued. We stepped back because we saw what we were becoming, and we weren't sure the galaxy was ready. Commander Ryder leaned toward his console, eyes locked on the alien fleet. His voice, when it came, was sharp as a blade. Every child born today on a Terran world can do things that would have been classified as myth 50 years ago. Every laborer now outperforms what your military once considered elite. Every Terran researcher makes your best AI look clumsy. You're still human? Varnax asked quietly. Strata's image didn't waver. More than ever, we didn't abandon our essence. We refined it. We shed the scaffolding, the arbitrary boundaries of flesh and circuit. What you see now is humanity liberated. And the data streams kept flowing, unrelenting. Schematics, timelines, enhancements. The aliens watched how the Terrans hadn't just improved tools. They'd rewired themselves, recalibrated emotion, redesigned education, rebuilt every institution to worship one principle: perpetual ascension. The Darwin Protocol, Marin explained, was never about making stronger soldiers or smarter thinkers. It was about creating a species capable of facing anything. Adaptation, survival, problem solving, at the scale of existence. Varnax's chest tightened with something primal. Terror. And what exactly did you have to become? Strata smiled, and in that faint, controlled expression, Varnax finally understood why no species had dared provoke humanity since their silence began. We became what stands between the galaxy and annihilation, Strata said, softly. The line of defense no one else was prepared to be. The immune system of civilization. Varnax blinked. What does that even mean? Strata's gaze hardened. It means while your people held the line for peace, we prepared for collapse of it. Not against you, but against what's coming. Marin stepped in. We've been listening to the edge for decades. And what's out there, what waits beyond the rim, doesn't care about treaties. She tapped a panel. The stream shifted. Signal traces, distortions, images of ruined star systems. There are forces out there that consume suns, machines older than time that reduce entire empires to data, sentiences that don't see life, they see infection. Varnax clenches fists. Then why not tell us? Because you wouldn't have listened, Strata said flatly. And even if you had, there was nothing you could have done. We can, Commander Ryder said as he stepped the command podium aboard the Vanguard. His voice carried conviction, not hope. In 10 years, maybe less, the first wave will breach Concord space. When that moment comes, you'll finally understand why we had to evolve. Why we spent half a century sculpting ourselves into weapons forged not for conquest, but for survival. Aboard the Zenthari flagship, the displays around Admiral Varnax abruptly shifted. Charts faded. Star maps dissolved. And then the shadows appeared. Colossal forms drifted across deep space scans. Void-born titans that swallowed light and erased constellations. Shapes that moved like smoke and hunger. This, General Strata said, voice barely above a whisper, is what approaches. This, he continued, is the reason no one crosses into Terran space. Not because we're predators, but because we're the only firewall left. The transmission ended. No farewell, no demand, just silence. And the abyss. Varnax stood motionless, the truth settling around him like ice. The Terrans hadn't secluded themselves to plot against the galaxy. They'd vanished to prepare, to build, to transform, to stand as the last wall between civilization and oblivion. He stared at the dark shapes crawling across the outer sectors of projection. For a long time he said nothing. Then his voice came, brittle as cracked metal. How long have you known? A new figure materialized on the screen. Dr. Elias Runn. No armor, no implants. Just an aging man in plain attire, weathered face, sharp eyes. His presence, though quiet, weighed like gravity. 37 years, Runn said. We first caught the signals while installing upgraded sensors along the rim. At first, we dismissed them, stellar collapses, maybe gamma events. But the patterns were intentional. Behind him, another figure stepped forward. Captain Nerafael the Spectre, one of the Terran ships now encircling the Concord fleet. Like all evolved humans, she moved like she knew what would happen before it did. "Doctor," she said, eyes on the alien feed. "Should we show them?" Run nodded. "They need to see." The alien bridge darkened again as new footage streamed in. Recordings from Terran probes beyond the known edge. At first, simple vistas. Familiar star maps. A comfort. Then, stars began to fade. No flares. No nova bursts. Just vanishment. Systems winking out like dying embers. One. Then another. Then 17. "This is the Helix Arm," Run narrated. "Roughly 15,000 light years from this location. In 30 years, we've seen 17 entire systems erased. No wreckage, no heat trails, no particles, just absence." Admiral Varnax felt his chitin tighten, his heart's pounding. What could do that? Faye turned her gaze toward him. "We call them the Devourers," she said flatly. "We don't know exactly what they are. Maybe machines. Maybe once alive. Maybe something that transcended both. But we know what they do. One thing we do know," Captain Nerafael said, her voice low, "is that they're coming this way." A new figure emerged on the alien screens. A man who, at first glance, could have been mistaken for a standard soldier. Broad-shouldered, steady stance, calm expression. But then Sergeant Mace Dre lifted something off the deck. A massive alloy support beam. Thick as a tree trunk, forged to withstand zero-gravity compression. It had to weigh tons. He bent it with his bare hands like it was wet clay. Then gently placed it down, undamaged. Admiral Varnax's breath caught. "Don't panic," Dr. Runn said, glancing sideways at the Admiral's expression. "Sergeant Dre is simply illustrating one element of enhanced human performance. Physical strength is only the surface layer of what we become." That's not possible," Varnax whispered. Dre smiled, not smug, but kindly, almost apologetic. "With respect, Admiral," he said softly, "we stopped believing impossible a long time ago. When everything you cherish is on the verge of vanishing, you find ways to become what's needed." Another figure stepped forward, hands shimmering with controlled bioelectric energy. Her presence was calm, surgical. "Admiral Varnax, I'm Dr. Lyra Jensen," she said. "I'm a neurobioengineer. I helped craft the upgrades that made our evolution viable. Would you like to understand what you're witnessing?" Varnax nodded slowly, unsure whether curiosity or dread was stronger. "Half a century ago," Jensen began, "our species hit its biological ceiling. There were hard limits. How fast we could think, how strong we could become, how long we could live. Lifespan, reflex, cognition, all capped." She gestured to the Terrans beside her, effortlessly managing stations that monitor gravitational folds and living architecture. "So we uncapped them, not by abandoning what made us human, but by amplifying it. Every citizen of our society today has the data processing speed of your most elite computing cores," she continued, "the strength of your war beasts, and lifespans long enough to master them." Varnax stared at them, at their grace, their focus, their calm. "And yet, you're still calling yourselves human?" Dr. Runn stepped forward again. "That's the most important part, Admiral. We didn't become monsters to gain this power. We didn't trade away what makes us us. We didn't lose our humanity." He paused, then added with quiet force, "We became more human than we ever were." To prove it, he activated another data stream, footage from within Terran society. Varnax braced for weapons drills, factory lines, military regimes. Instead, he saw a child balancing across a moving bridge of levitating spheres, laughing. Artists painting with molecular light. Families gathered under starlit skies, meals stretching into hours of conversation. We still love, Run said simply. We still wonder. We still fail, fall, and learn. We still protect each other. We just do it now, on a scale our ancestors couldn't dream of. Captain Fail activated a new panel, her tone quiet but firm. Admiral, would you like to see what our worlds actually look like? Not the defenses, not the perimeter shields, the homes we built. The screen flickered, and the alien bridge went quiet as it revealed a Terran city, unlike anything Admiral Varnax had ever imagined. Structures didn't stand, they flowed, shaped by the needs of those who live within them. Towers shifted height based on daylight flow. Walls morphed into windows at a gesture. Gardens pulsed with living color. Plants that responded to music. Creatures evolved not just for beauty, but to express it. Even the air shimmered with microscopic networks that adapted to mood and health. Admiral Varnax's voice was low, reluctant. This is beautiful. Fail nodded. And also practical, she said. Every individual in that habitat, artist, teacher, child, could, if needed, become a soldier capable of dismantling threats your military couldn't comprehend. Each child carries a knowledge equivalent to your highest counsel. Each laborer, the creative force of your finest minds. Mace Dre stepped forward. But that's not the real difference, Admiral. Not really. What makes us different is this. He tapped his chest. We still believe in becoming more. We believe, he continued, that tomorrow can outshine today. Dr. Jensen gave a solemn nod. We call it the human condition. And no, it's not just flesh or machine. It's resistance to entropy, to despair. It's that spark that says, no matter how dark it gets, we find the light. Even when facing the devourers? Varnax asked quietly. Especially then, Run replied. He stepped to the center of the projection. Your Concord achieved peace by retreating from the edge. You build stability by embracing boundaries. And when you find a threat you can't confront, you either sidestep it or pretend it doesn't exist. And humans, Varnax asked, though he already felt the answer in his bones. Fail didn't hesitate. We face it, head on, no matter the cost, no matter how long it takes. No matter what we must become, we find a way. The screen shifted again. Research domes unfolded across alien eyes. Structures orbiting dead stars. Scientists thinking faster than neural nets. Engineers manipulating quantum states with their bare hands. For 37 years, Jensen said softly, we've been evolving, not just preparing weapons, but sculpting ourselves into the kind of life form that can fight the impossible and win. But what if you're wrong? Varnax asked, what if these devourers are beyond even you? The humans exchanged glances, quiet, steady. There was no panic, no doubt, just a calm, terrifying certainty. Then, said Sergeant Dre, we evolve again. We adapt. We rise. Dr. Run leaned closer, eyes sharp as glass. Admiral, that's what your kind never grasped about us. You look at what we've built and assume we're a threat. And you're right. We are a threat, but only to what endangers life itself. Never to life. Varnax's voice cracked. How can we believe that? Fail smiled, the same gentle smile Dre had worn earlier. Because in 50 years, despite all this power, we've never used it to conquer, never expanded beyond the lines we drew, never demanded loyalty or fear. And instead, Run said, finishing for her, we spent 5 decades training to die for civilizations who don't even know we're the only reason they still exist. That, he added softly, is the human condition. Condition, Admiral. We don't crave dominion. We don't march to subjugate. We don't rise to rule the galaxy. Dr. Run's voice dropped to something solemn. We rise to preserve it. Then the transmission paused. Admiral Varnax looked around his bridge. Not a sound. His officer sat frozen, eyes wide, mind spiraling. They weren't just stunned, they were shaken. Even he had trouble absorbing what he'd just seen, felt. Then, at last, the voice returned. "Admiral," Run said gently, "you came seeking answers, wondering why no one crosses a threshold into Terran space. Now you know. It's not because we're aggressive. It's because we're the final barrier standing between this galaxy and oblivion." And now, his tone shifted, weight pressing down. "We're about to find out if half a century of sacrifice was enough." 3 days passed. Varnax remained within the borderlands of human space, still grappling with truths he couldn't unsee, when chaos shattered the silence. "Admiral!" his comms officer shouted, panic in her voice. Multiple fleets approaching, from every direction. Varnax leapt to the main display. The star map burst into motion, dozens of vessels lighting up the edges. A patchwork of alien banners. Saran attack flotillas. Ethereal science barges. Even the crystalline dreadnoughts from the peaceful Zevatari core. All converging on Terran space. A new voice came over the bridge speakers, calm, steady. "Admiral Varnax," said Captain Jake Morrison from the Cerberus, "we're aware of the incoming fleets. Been tracking them since launch." "What?" Varnax turned. "That's not possible. Some of those ships launched yesterday." Morrison's voice didn't change. "We have our methods. The real question is, are you going to stand with us or stand in our way?" Before he could answer, a new voice took over. Smooth, measured, undeniably powerful. "Admiral Varnax," the voice said, "this is President Daniel Clark of the Terran Coalition. We need to talk." The screen changed. President Clark appeared, an unassuming man in a plain suit, middle-aged, unenhanced by any visible tech. But his eyes, those eyes, spoke of timelines, wars, and burdens no normal man could carry. "Mr. President," Varnax said, choosing his words carefully, "my government didn't authorize these fleets." "We know," Clark replied without missing a beat. "Each species acted independently. The Sorans are looking for a fight. The Etherians want to poke and prod. And the Crystari dread the idea that we built something unstoppable." He paused, leaning in slightly. "They're all making the same mistake you made, Admiral." Varnax frowned. "And what mistake is that?" Clark nodded to someone off-screen. "Admiral Sarah Brooks." "Show him." A second figure appeared beside the president. She wore no medals, no armor. But the moment she entered the frame, Varnax felt it. This was someone who had commanded fleets so advanced they bent probability. Someone whose mere presence made him sit straighter. "Admiral Varnax," she said, voice like cold steel and warm silk. While your fleets have been posturing at our borders," Admiral Brooks said, her voice steady as steel, "we've been watching something else. Something far more dangerous." She gestured, and the displays lit up. Admiral Varnax froze. The data on screen was unmistakable. Gravitational shifts, collapsing star trails, and energy distortions moving through deep space like a storm front. The shadows, those unfathomable shapes seen earlier, were accelerating, dramatically. "What we believed would take 10 years, Brooks said grimly, will now happen in 10 months. "The Devourers have altered course," she continued. "Our best guess? They picked up on the power fluctuations from your fleets entering Terran space. And now, they're headed for inhabited systems." President Clark took one slow step forward. "Admiral," he said calmly, "whatever invasion your coalition was planning, it's over. In 6 hours, we'll all be too busy just trying to survive." 6 hours. Varnax whispered. A new face joined the channel. Dr. Andy Mitchell, chief analyst from Terran Deepwatch. "The vanguard of the Devourer Horde has entered sensor range," he announced. "We're initiating Protocol Nexus." Varnax narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" Clark didn't flinch. "It's how we bring the galaxy up to speed." You and every vessel in those encroaching fleets, he continued, are about to receive a full transfer, Terran tech tactics, neural overlays, enough to fight back. Commander Lyra Park stepped forward. She looked like a diplomat, measured tone, tailored suit, soothing expression. But her words struck like a hammer. Integration protocol will amplify your ships, your systems, and your personnel to roughly 10% of our capability, she explained. It's temporary. It's disorienting. But it's the only shot you have. You intend to change us? Varnax said, almost recoiling. Only if you consent, Clark replied. We won't force it. But, Admiral, take another look. Varnax turned to the sensor maps. There they were, the oncoming tide. Devourer fleets darkening entire sectors, their bulk like drifting moons, their movement eerily synchronized. And deeper behind them, something worse, a void swallowing light. A presence that didn't just bend reality, it erased it. How many? Varnax asked softly, his throat dry. 17,000 capital-class vessels in the initial assault, Brooks replied. Roughly 4 million strike craft, and one entity we've designated the Nullspire. It's planetary in scale, likely a central command organism. Varnax's voice cracked. And how many ships do you have? 312, she said quietly. Varnax stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. You can't stand against 17,000 ships with 300. President Clark's voice was gentle, but it hit like gravity. Admiral, we're not planning to stand. We're planning to evolve. You're still thinking like this is a battle between ships, said Dr. Mitchell as new holographics lit the bridge. But we stopped being just ships and soldiers 50 years ago. He gestured, and the displays transformed. This protocol isn't about enhancing your tech. It's about expanding how you think, how you perceive solutions where others see extinction. Varnax looked across the screen at Commander Park. What do you need from us? She smiled, not with condescension, but hope. Help us save everything. Help us prove that life is worth fighting for. Then it began. No fanfare. No flashing lights. Just a change. Varnax's mind widened like an opening horizon. Terran data surged into his neural cortex. Not just knowledge, but clarity. Ship systems reconfigured in real time, adapting to Terran frameworks. His crew gasped and staggered, their biology momentarily disoriented as enhancements took hold. But then they stood straighter. They weren't just upgraded. They understood. He saw it now, how the Terrans had turned failure into theory, theory into action, action into transformation. He felt the fire that drove them, the belief that every wall could be broken, every future rewritten. Then came Admiral Brooks' voice, calm but electric. Admiral Varnax, your fleet is now woven into our outer defense lattice. What you're about to see isn't just space. It's our response to annihilation. Around them, stars began to shift once more. But now, Varnax knew what he was seeing. The warping of space wasn't chaos. It was strategy. Human space was not territory. It was weaponry on a cosmic scale. A galactic immune system built not to dominate, but to endure. A system born to fight nightmares. All coalition ships. President Clark's voice rang out over every comm channel. You came to test us, but now you're part of something far greater. You're to help us hold the line. In 30 minutes, he continued, the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known will reach our threshold. And when it arrives, you'll understand why we needed half a century. Varnax felt the last connections lock into place. His cognition now moved like lightning. Calculations that once took days played out in a blink. Weapons he could not have conceived hours ago now felt like old tools. Admiral Brooks, he said, voice resolute, I await your command. She didn't hesitate. Then let's give these devourers something they've never seen. Her eyes burned with calm fury. Let's show them what happens when life decides not to die quietly. And then President Clark's final words echoed across space, to every being now bonded in survival. Today, We learn whether 50 years of silent preparation was enough. Today, we find out if the belief in the impossible can save a galaxy from extinction. And today, no one would stand alone. As the devourers surge in the abyss between stars, vast, silent, unstoppable, Admiral Varnax finally understood. This wasn't just about humanity anymore. They had come to this forbidden corner of the galaxy, searching for answers, wary of what the humans had become. But in crossing that line, they had unknowingly stepped into the one place capable of standing between existence and oblivion. Now, they were part of that line. And for the first time since breaching human space, Admiral Varnax felt no fear. Because now he understood this wasn't just about surviving. It was about evolving, about protecting what matters by becoming more than you ever thought possible. And in doing so, changing not just yourself, but everyone who fights beside you. The greatest battle in the history of the stars was moments away. And this time, life would fight back. If that story shook you, imagine what's still out there. Like, comment and share your thoughts. What would you do if your species had to evolve to survive? And don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic sci-fi stories that ask the big questions. Because in this galaxy, the next evolution might be you.